I want to go behind the burnt orange curtain here a little bit and discuss what I think schematically is a hurdle that Sark's got to overcome to become the elite coach that we all hope and we all expect him to be. Because we all expect him to become a championship coach this year and compete, and some even say win the Big 12. So schematically, one of the defensive kind of adaptations that we've seen as of late in the Big 12, and it actually was popularized here, and some people even said that it was born here and created here in the Big 12, is a 3-high, 3-down defense. We've heard people talk about this 3-high safety looks. It's basically all the same coverages, all the same pressures that you would run from a single high or a 2-deep safety set, except it's just different presentation and different packaging. So it's just 3-high. And the reason it's a little bit different is because not only is it something relatively new, because I think the first time we see this 3-high safety look was around 2016. So you're talking about something that's less than 10 years old. So there aren't a lot of natural built-in, baked-in beaters. You ever hear of cover 1 beaters, cover 2 beaters, cover 3 beaters, cover 4 beaters? There are natural baked-in beaters to all offensive systems, and everybody knows them. You've been working through them since your high school days. Well, you don't really have those for the 3-high because it's relatively new. And since you don't really have those baked in, I think also it's tougher because it presents a more malleable, flexible defensive look for the offense, because you can move those chess pieces around a little bit better and a little bit more, I would say, frequently than you would with a 2-high shell look. So it just makes your defense more malleable. And not that Dan Quinn uses 3-high looks, but he does use 3 safeties for a lot of the same reasons. So against that particular schematic concept, the 3-high safety, which, by the way, Iowa State popularized in 2017, and they probably pioneered and they probably run it better than anybody else in the country with John Haycock. And they run it so well that teams from the NFL, teams from around the country, Power 5 teams, Brent Venables, when he was at Clemson, teams from all the country, they come to Ames, Iowa to study that 3-high defense because it's a great spread neutralizer. And that's why a lot of teams came to study it. And now teams in the NFL, they use a 3-high safety look too. As a matter of fact, when Patrick Mahomes had one of his worst performances we've ever seen him have at the NFL level in the Super Bowl versus Tampa Bay on a lot of those third downs, they were running a 3-high safety looks against Patrick Mahomes, a Big 12 quarterback. So anyway, getting to it, last season, and you can even go back to that Arkansas matchup that Sark had in 2020.
Yep.
That Arkansas matchup that Sark had in 2020, and Sark's offense, we know, gangbusters for Alabama in 2020, one of the greatest offenses in the history of college football. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but against Barry Odom's Arkansas defense, which ran to 3-high, one of the only teams to run it in the SEC at the time, and probably still are. Man, they held that Bama offense to only 208 yards passing, 7.2 yards per attempt, when normally that team was averaging 11.5 yards per attempt in the other games and 357 yards passing. They had only, if you go look at it, only averaged between Najee Harris and Brian Robinson, they averaged less than 4 yards per carry in that game in 2020. Now, fast forward the last 2 years, that's the sample size I'm working with. And I'm looking at the teams that have minored or majored in that schematic concept and how Sark's offense have performed and what the productivity and output have been versus those defenses. So Sark's offenses basically averaged in the last 2 years, you're talking about 30, 34, close to 35 points per game. But against a 3-high defense, his offenses average 9 fewer points per game, based on my math and my analysis. If you just take Sark's offensive output or his offense's productivity versus 3-high defenses juxtaposed or compared to defenses that play more traditional 2-high and single-high sets, you're talking about 15 fewer points per game.
Jeez. TCU would be a great example last year.
Yes,
TCU.
Iowa State is also another
Iowa
great
State.
example. Iowa State does a really good job of it as well. And then Arkansas, in that first
For
year,
sure, I was at that game.
That was
horrible.
Only 21 points.
Well, and you know what? The key to me, I mean, I'm not the football theorist you are. The key to me is you got to run the ball. You got to be able to win the line of scrimmage in a big way.
A power run game can really take a lot of the schematics and the theory and the tactics and strategy out of it. And Texas did that versus Iowa State last year.
Yeah.
They just ran the red, just run the rock. You can run the rock, then you're right. It eliminates a lot of the minutia, right? But I went and looked at what if it's not just scoring, it could be other things too. I went and looked at the output in yards. And you look at third downs, so third downs versus three high defenses, 37% conversion rate versus non-three high defenses, a more traditional packaging or presentation. You're talking about 44% conversion rate. Passing yards versus three high, you're at 186. Passing yards versus other defenses, you're at 265 yards per game. Passing, if you look at yards per attempt, you'll like this one. So Sark's offenses have averaged over 7 yards per attempt 15 times in the last 2 years. Only twice has it been against a three high defense.
Well, he's going to see a lot of it, and that's what you wonder if he's been working on all offseason, and maybe part of the Paul Chryst hire as that's a big part of it too. Hey, we got to be able to line up. They're going to go three high safeties. We have to be able to line up and hit them in the mouth and run the football.
And I think that's also, you're going to see that 6-0 line package. That also going to be an answer to just go power football against that three high defense. And the reason schematically that it matches up well with Sark schematically is because the three high defense, basically it distorts the pre-snap read for the quarterback because he has no idea where that third safety really is going to be. And based on where that safety lines up, that could, especially if it's an RPO where you're counting the numbers in the box. If you have the numbers advantage, you hand it off. If you don't have the numbers advantage, you're going to pick it up and throw it. In the RPO situation, if they distort the box count and you miscount or have an inaccurate count, then you may just hand the ball off into a numbers disadvantage,
which they did against TCU over and over again last year.
Exactly, because you cannot accurately get the count because you don't know exactly how they're going to move around those chess pieces and those defenders. That's why it matches up really well with Sark's offense. And Sark describes his offense as an RPO-based passing game, so he wants to run more and more RPOs, which means more and more pre-snap diagnosis that has to be precise and accurate, and that three high will distort that for the quarterback.